it is time for Book Banter on the coolest coast. Good afternoon and welcome to Coffee on the Coast. We've got an episode today of Book Banter. That means we have Therese Horstketter from Manitowoc Public Library joining us. Hi, Therese. So good to see you.
Hi, good to see you too.
Can you tell I get so excited when it's Book Banter Day?
I can tell. Then again, I don't see you a lot otherwise than here, so maybe that's just your nature.
Well, there's probably some of that too, but I really do love this Book Banter episode. I just want to say out front that I really appreciate you curating some books and giving us recommendations. It encourages us to keep reading. And, thanks to the recommendations you've shared over this past year or so, I've really been introduced to some reads that I don't think I would have necessarily picked up on my own, but my life is better for having read them.
There's a lot that we have found to share, and yeah, I enjoy so many and so many different ones because I kind of look differently knowing I'll be doing this when I'm reading things. So, it's not just all straight my favorite, mystery thriller kind of thing. So, yeah, I found a lot of really good books.
Nice. Well, let's get right into it because you've got some great selections, I think, for us today. One of the first ones you have is Signal Fires, a novel by Danny Shapiro.
Signal Fires it starts out with a car accident outside the house of what happens to be a doctor and his wife and his children. And it's the beginning of the book, but the book takes you in different directions and within a neighborhood of people explains how they are intertwined in many different ways. And so there are a few unique characters in there, this doctor and his family, and then the family of a young boy named Waldo. And he is a very intelligent young boy, and he loves to study the stars. And so that is kind of, when you look at the cover of the book, there are little, and when I looked it up, because I thought, I don't remember fire so much, but when it was brought up somewhere in a discussion of the book, and it talked about fires and light, like stars bringing the light and fires, that it kind of played into that thought. And so there's a good, like dozen characters in the book, and they at times do cross, and you jump back and forth, and it'll give you part of it, and then it'll go back and say, and this is where this family really started, and how they came to the neighborhood or whatever. It was a very good book, and I thought at first, as I was reading it, I thought it was long. How some authors will have such short chapters and keep you moving fast. This did not have that kind of feel to it, but it is well worth the read. It's not an overly long book, but it is well worth the read, even though it doesn't move really fast. I really enjoyed it.
Nice. What genre would you put this in?
This is just, I would say, mainstream fiction.
Okay. So not necessarily mystery, not necessarily suspense.
No.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
Awesome. And it's not a Where's Waldo book per se?
No.
Okay, awesome. And
you most of the time know where Waldo is. That's kind of funny. There will be a part that may involve that. And I will say no more.
So it says she's the author of Inheritance. Is that a book that you've read? Have you read anything else?
I have not read any others by her, but I did like her writing a lot here.
Okay, cool. I've put this on my wish list. So as soon as the hold is available, they will let me know. I'm excited about that. Okay, completely shifting tracks then. Let's talk about Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This is by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I have read this book, and so I'm so excited to see this on your list.
This I just picked up, and I think the cover just caught me as I was looking for something else in our shelving. It is a 2018 book, and the idea is that there is a cafe that has existed for over 100 years, and people can go there to go back in time. And you are limited very strictly by the rules they have, the timing you have to have. And one of the rules is that you are poured a cup of coffee and you must be ready to come back to where you started from before the coffee gets cold. And so it's like it's timer with this, that is your limit of time to where you go. You can select where you want to go and, for whatever reasons you would want to do this, but that is one of the limiters on this, on how your travel can go.
And that's a really unique challenge because if you think about
Right.
a cup of coffee, how long do you have before it gets cold?
Right, right. And I had no idea. Just picking it up, you're like, what is this really going to be about? Because, there were just, okay, before the coffee gets cold, is it that something happens to you before, or just a one-time thing and they start a book out like that? But no, it's very good. And I said it's a gentle book, it's an emotional book, and it is very, not really sparse wording, but succinct. It is not an overly wordy, descriptive book. Enough, you get the feel of everything that you should, but it's not overly
Yeah.
wordy.
Right,
Hmm.
right. I agree. And I think gentle is a really good description. When you say time travel, a person might think like, oh, Doctor Who or,
Right.
sci-fi, fan, and it's
Yeah.
not that at all. It is a
Right.
really unique handling of it and what a person has to go through decision-wise before
Right.
even going through that process. Because I think,
Hmm.
do I remember correctly, can you only do it once in your life?
It seems like that is the case to me. I don't remember if that was ever stated. Because as you go through, there are like three separate stories kind of in here, but still involving the same people basically at the cafe. And so as it goes on, you learn a few new things here and there about, what all takes place and how it does. And yeah, it's just, I never heard that, but I would think that is almost because otherwise people would try and do it every day to hop back to
Yeah.
some, yeah. And so I'm thinking that is part of it. But the other thing to mention is that this is the first in a trilogy about the cafe, it sounds like. And there are two other books that also by the same author and about the same basic place and ability at the cafe.
Oh, nice. So I have not read the others. I did read this one.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize that there were others. So it's interesting because this is perfect as a standalone book. But
Right.
if you enjoy the story, it's kind of nice to know you could
Yeah.
keep going.
Yeah. And the next one is called Tales from the Cafe. And then the next one is Before Your Memory Fades. So I'm thinking this could be, these were emotional to start with, and that it may be more so in a different direction.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's a sweet read. It's
it
thoughtful and
was.
it's thought provoking.
Right. Definitely.
It's interesting, Teresa, when I think about all of the stories that I've read, and I know you've probably read, thousands more than me even, there's plenty that it's a great read, but a week later you almost forget, like, wait, what was that
Right.
storyline? But this one really sticks with me. I find myself
Yeah.
thinking about this book a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very good.
Viewers, if you've read this book, we would love to know your opinions, your thoughts, and if you enjoyed it. Okay, so now we're going to switch tracks again. There is a book, I've got this quote that I found. It says, if Tina Fey and David Sedaris had a daughter, she would be Maeve Higgins. So let's talk about this book, Maeve in America.
So the reason I actually picked this one up is that I have a display right now for March that involves Irish authors. And so I had this book on my list just to put out on display. And then when I saw what it actually was, I thought, oh, I think I have to get this and read it. And I started laughing right away with this book um, because it does list the chapters in the beginning. And the very first chapter is called Swimming Against Dolphins, not with. And and there are some really funny moments in it. Um, I think the author is going to give a lot. I am just into like my fourth chapter now, but I intend to keep reading it. And just to get a few different ideas of what she had, I thought, is it all going to be kind of this? But each one takes on a little different subject. And it is not overly just nonstop funny, but the moments that are really funny. And you can just, go right along with her, getting the same feeling when she puts you in these places with her. And
Ooh.
the dolphins, she swears, are there to kill her, not to swim with her nicely. And in fact, at one point, she says, um, I had no idea. And she made herself go swimming with the dolphins because she always hears you should. And she wanted something she could tell people when they say, what do you like to do? Well, she forced herself into doing this, but then at some point she said, I had no idea they were going to be able to stand up vertically and laugh at me while they tried to kill me. And so it was just her description of what was happening and her reactions. It was good. And then it goes on to another chapter about trying to find a dress for a ball that she needs to go to, and she has no money, and it's just a whole experience in a different way. And then in another chapter, she's traveling to Iraq that they are trying to work with, since she is also a comedian, that um, that it is her trying to help people. I'm trying to think of the right word for it, but she takes along two other authors, and they are helping people kind of fit into different things, and they're working with comedians from Iraq that are trying to, I guess, more so spread a word and entertain in different ways. And so they just came along with another person who was doing different things in Iraq to help people. He knew her and asked her to go along to do this. And so it's just some unique experiences, but with both a serious and then a very funny touch.
Have you actually laughed out loud while reading it?
Oh, yes. The dolphin one had me going from page one. And then, yep, in the other ones too, I've already been at that point. And yeah,
Oh, that's fun.
yeah,
So, did I read correctly in the blurb that so she's an Irish author
right.
from Ireland
Yes.
and came to America like in her mid 30s?
I think that would be about right. If that's what you remember seeing, I'm sure that's, yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, but I like her. I'm wondering what this would be like. I don't know that, I don't think we have it in an audio, but I would think it would be pretty funny if you had an accent along with all this.
Oh, Therese, I'm
So,
glad that you
yeah.
brought that up because when I got your book recommendations and when I read what it was
Hmm.
about, I immediately went
Yeah,
to the Libby app to either borrow it or place a hold on it,
right.
and the Libby app doesn't have it,
Oh,
or our library system doesn't have it.
right.
So I did put in a request, and
Oh,
so it
nice.
sounds like they're working on
Yeah.
possibly getting it on the Libby app.
You never know. I would think is well, I should say if she's reading it, that's the other thing. But you would kind of think she would like to, being a comedian, that she would want to read her own.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, and
yeah,
and it's just really nice sometimes to hear it in that voice.
yeah, yeah.
Cool. Okay, awesome. So next up, you've got a recommendation of Righteous Prey by John Sandford.
Okay. This is a favorite author of mine, and I don't know what number of book we were on. Just there's tons. They're called the Prey books. And so every single one of them has prey in the title. And
Mm.
Lucas Davenport is the main character of most. And he actually he works with the FBI. He gets called in for different kind of crimes that are happening, generally murders for whatever reason or involvement in another crime. And they are just he's just a wonderful writer. I think the books move along. You get to know the characters if you start kind of further back. This was just the latest one I had read, and I thought it was really pretty good, considering some authors kind of get repetitive if they are writing a lot, but I still like his. It was a story about a man being killed, and then Oh, sorry, I think it was a woman that was killed first. But then somebody puts out a message online saying this is from the five, and they are people who are rich and are trying to kill people they feel are bad. And each of these five people apparently has someone that they are targeting. And they are very open about it because they figure this person was, they mention here like rapist, murderer, or something, but then they're going and just taking out justice because they want to.
Right.
Mhm.
Interesting.
And the second person mentioned, Virgil Flowers, was a character that came in along the way, and they have a kind of funny relationship. Lucas Davenport side story on him is that he was developing video games and ended up selling things that he developed and became very rich. So he can kind of work in a different way than some people, and he'll be requested to work with. Yeah, it's not a 9 to 5 job.
Okay, gotcha.
And so Virgil Flowers also, and he's the kind of guy, this is said a lot in like Minnesota. And so Virgil will be called to go somewhere and he'll say, am I going to have time to go fishing? You know, he's a little different character. But they are just, they're good together. They're good when there are separate books where Virgil is the main character. And those are not, they don't have the word prey in. That's, if you look under the authors listings, you'll find the Virgil Flower books also.
Okay.
So just good. I've really liked every one that I've read by him.
So I haven't read any of these, but I did put this one on my hold list. Do you think it'll be okay to jump in here?
You can. There's some things that you learn along the way, that they had worked with other people that kind of bounce in and out of different stories and their families as they developed along the way. So they've had relationships, you know, that have, yeah. So it's always kind of fun to start, but you can do it as a read alone also.
Okay, good to know.
Yep.
And would you say, so this one is a mystery?
It is, as you're trying to figure out who is doing these and how far the five will really get or not. And yeah, so for that reason, yes, you're waiting to see a lot that will happen.
Okay. Oh, sounds very interesting. All right.
It is.
So then let's completely switch tracks again. You've got a preview for us. Let's talk about this. Wake Up with Purpose, What I've Learned in My First 100 Years by Sister Jean.
I just love this cover. And she is the chaplain to the Loyola. Okay, let me do this right. To the Loyola Chicago, oh, she's Loyola, I'm saying it right. Loyola Chicago matriarch and college basketball chaplain, basically. And so it says that a lot of the young men that she's helped along the way still come back to her to sit down and talk. And it just, I don't know, it just gave me a good feeling looking at this cover, just a little bit of a blurb that I read about it. And I thought, this is not something that I would look to find. But when I found it, I thought it looked really very interesting, and does, you know, with 100 years under your belt, I'm sure it has to be interesting.
Yeah, that's the unique perspective. And we often don't get to hear somebody's perspective if they've accomplished 100 years, right?
Right.
So to have it down on paper and be able to share those reflections.
Yes. I'm hoping it's good. It just seemed like, yeah, a nice thing to offer that, yeah, we have a lot of murders and stuff, and this is really a nice different thing to offer here.
So, point of clarification then, you think the scarf that she's wearing is a Loyola scarf and not a Hogwarts scarf?
I would assume. Well, you never know. You do never know. We'll see what we find out in our 100 years.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, she could be a huge Harry Potter fan, right?
She could be. but I think that's probably otherwise.
Viewers, if you've read this book already, we would love to know what you thought about it in the comments. Okay, so we've got one more book. I just want to put up this little preview that I'd found about it. It says it's smart, surprising, cool, and fun with a deeply satisfying ending. And then it goes on to call it a spectacularly devious novel. Okay, so tell us more about The
Well,
Kind Worth Saving by Peter
um,
Swanson.
several of the staff here, a good number of us, loved a previous book of his called The Kind Worth Killing.
It was
So
good.
it was so good. And even having to reread it when we did a book discussion, I it still surprised me again. I had kind of forgotten what happened here and there when, with the whole book, but loved that book. And then when I saw he came along with this, The Kind Worth Saving, and I thought, oh, I just have to. I'm like ninth or 10th on the hold list right now. And it's like, oh, I have to put this out there. People are going to be thrilled because I know it wasn't just the people working here who liked it. We had a lot of people who really liked it. So,
So does that
yeah,
mean this is a new release?
yes, it is a new release. And that's all I can really say about it pretty much, besides what the blurb said, that it's going to be a private eye, but who comes back around to the woman who hired him possibly being an issue, I guess is the way to leave it.
Interesting. And so,
Yes.
yeah, you're right. The first book that he wrote, The Kind Worth Killing, it's interesting because you hear the title and your mind goes one way, and the book, it was this
Yep.
pleasant surprise, right? I really
Yes.
enjoyed it
Oh, it
too.
was so good. Yes.
And so if this
Yeah.
is anything like that, but so I wonder too, like, does this title lead you one direction and really the book is going to
Yep.
spin a different
I
way?
know, because I thought, oh, where are we going to go with this one? Because you can't make it too lighthearted, definitely. And I would think there's going to be enough surprises in this one too. I
Nice.
remember just having my mouth hanging open with the other book, that there were some real shockers in there without telling anybody who hasn't read it yet. But that one's really definitely one to put on your list if you haven't read it.
Yeah, I remember it just had such a unique, fresh plot, right? It
Yep.
was unlike anything that I had previously read. When you
Yeah.
read it a second time, did new things come to light? Did you like,
Um, not really come to light, but that it was funny for how much we liked the book. A couple of us were comparing and saying, I forgot that happened. And, they were major things, but there was a lot in that book. There were quite a few twists with people that happened and things you were surprised that he did with characters in the book. And so I think that was just it. You came upon it and it's like, oh, that's right.
cool,
Yeah.
so this is really a courtesy heads up. Peter Swanson, we know he's a great author. We, Therese, myself, number of other people have definitely enjoyed the first book.
Yeah.
So this new release of The Kind Worth Saving, put it on your holds list, or get a hold of it if you can. Or if you're lucky enough that you've read it, tell us in the comments
Yeah.
what you thought
Yeah.
about it. But no spoilers.
No. And I thought, I know it's one that I would probably in the future like to talk about, but we can either say, yeah, we loved it, or it doesn't have to be one of our main books since we're featuring it here, but it never hurts to,
Yeah.
compare.
Yeah, absolutely right. It would be great to bring it back around.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like if you look on the cover, it says the plot is an ingenious puzzle.
Mhm.
Ah,
Oh, I hope it doesn't disappoint. I'm really looking forward to it.
I wonder how deep I am on the holds list. I should double
Oh,
check.
I'm on like 9 or 10, but I also have 20 other books to read, so that's okay. And I'll never make it through those. Half will be coming back and put back on hold. So,
It is one thing I love about the Libby app. When you put books on hold, you never know quite how long it's going to take. And then all of a sudden you get this notification like, hey, your book is here. And it's like, yes.
yeah, that's always fun to find out you've got a hold. We have so many, well, not so many, I should say, but enough people that'll say, it's like Christmas, or it's so exciting when you get notified that your book is here. And yeah, it is like that.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
Therese, thank you for these great recommendations today. So we talked about Signal Fires by Danny Shapiro. We talked about Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. We talked about Maeve in America by Maeve Higgins. Then we talked about Righteous Prey by John Sandford. This adorable looking one, Wake Up with Purpose by Sister Jean. And then The Kind Worth Saving by Peter Swanson. What an awesome selection.
Oh, I hope they're all good for everybody.
Well, thank you so much for recommending them. And yeah, viewers, if you've read a book and you don't like it, that's absolutely fine too. But we would love it if you shared your comments and let us know what you're reading if you have any recommendations. Therese, thanks so much for joining me today on Coffee on the Coast for this episode of Book Banter. You really know how to make the last Monday or the last Wednesday of the month fun.
Thank you.
Thanks everybody for watching this episode of Coffee on the Coast Book Banter. We'll see you next time.